Hi everyone, and welcome to this new video. Today we're going to talk about how we actually got from the video for Elvira over to the book version. I'm actually going to talk through the process, so at least everybody gets a good comprehension of that. And if there's any questions, happy to basically respond to them. So if so, leave them in the chat below or the comments below. So we got the video for Elvira. I'll put the link for that again in the comments as well. And what I've actually done with that, I actually not only created the video, I actually also created an actual book version of that. Listed on Amazon, as you can see. I've actually bought it myself as well, as you can see. But basically, it's the full video, but then in book format. It does, of course, not have the same set of images in there. These are dedicated different images I created for that. But I do have to say that the way of actually creating this, I've changed that. So book one was created in a slightly different process compared to book two. I used different AIs for that particular purpose to support the process of creating the images that actually were used in the book itself. Now, previously, you've seen me talking about the actual use of image effects, at least if you looked at the making of video for the Elvira Village Sparkles video. So image effects is what I used originally for the actual image creation for the video, as well as subsequently for the actual book. That was for book one, the way that I actually approached it. Now, for the second episode, I again, for the video, used image effects itself, but I noticed that there was lots of inconsistency in terms of the image creation that was occurring in there. So I was looking for another tool. I could, of course, have used tools like Leonardo or Gemini or ChatGPT and so forth. I ultimately settled for Gemini because that's the tool I was already using to get the script together, to basically turn it from a script into a book version and so forth as well. So Gemini played a pivotal role in that entire process. Now, one thing to bear in mind when you're creating a video versus creating a book, video has to be optimized for the dimensions of your screen, which is a 16:9 dimension format. So that's basically HD dimensions that you see on there. Whereas when you're creating a book, the image dimension should be a 1:1. So whatever image you create for the video, you couldn't necessarily reuse for the book. So like I said before, I used Gemini to basically expand upon the actual story I had in mind. So I had a story in mind. I basically wrote that down, about half an A4 or so, put it into Gemini and said, well, can we turn this story outline into a video script? And that's kind of what basically you see on screen at the moment. I basically put it into a docs document. It basically gives you the general outline, end of the game, Elvira's chance, investigation, fun, and so forth. Those were the different scenes that actually occurred in the video, but of course also then were converted into the book itself afterwards. So again, I said, well, I've got this particular video script here. Can we turn that into something that I can actually use? So if I actually go over to here, I actually asked it to do that. And this actually for the second book, this is the actual description in terms of a picture book format. Now, I used it for the second book here on purpose because for the first book, I didn't have actually exactly the same outlines on there as I've got here. So what you see it actually having done, it creates an idea of actually what kind of picture is useful there. I might have deviated from that slightly, but I was actually able to use these picture descriptions in the original book, the first book in Image FX. But you need to put a lot of extra information on there, like what's the hair color of Elvira? What's her typical appearance, age, etc., etc. Those kind of things you have to put into there. Now, for the second book, like I said earlier, I used a slightly different process, and that process actually involved me putting that data, of course, originally into Gemini itself, and then saying, well, based upon the earlier provided descriptions, can you now create this picture? So using a generative AI gives you a lot more tools to be able to create images of consistent appearance. So if you look at book one, you might actually notice that the clothing on Elvira is slightly different from image to image. It's a lot more consistent in book 2, 3, 4 that you basically will see as you go through them. So what we've basically got here is I've got here the next outline for the next book. I've changed the title slightly. This is the original outline here. It puts together some of the images here. But as you can see, I'm able to put into your prompts in here. And if I basically expand upon this, I basically got an entire story outline here already. Not going to show you the full thing, but the idea being here is you can actually put a full story idea into there. And then based upon that story idea you got in Gemini, it can then expand upon that and put the different characters and so forth around there with names and so forth, scene descriptions. And again, you can then say, well, can you turn this also into a picture book version? Now, sometimes it then creates an eight version book, or sorry, page book, I should really say. But we can actually, of course, expand upon that quite substantially. And I've actually then turned that into, like, for example, a 28-page book. Yeah. So we can, because we got so much detail in the video, we need to really define when we tell Gemini, can you create this in a picture book, how many pages you want it to be. And that uses the details from your earlier description as well as the video script it created to then lay that out for us within here. And then that final step, of course, is the actual publishing of the book itself. So what I'm actually using for that particular purpose, I'm using Kindle Direct Publishing, KDP, from Amazon, which allows us to basically put in there the script that we've created in Word, then turn into PDF, to be able to publish the paperback. For the Kindle version, we actually use a separate tool. It's a tool provided by Amazon itself, which is called Kindle Create. You basically install that on your computer, put your PDF in there, and you then go through the process of actually converting it into a Kindle script. Very, very similar, except of course the layouts of the Kindle itself are slightly different compared to the book. So that's the process I actually followed on here. You actually see I've actually created an Italian version of the first book here as well. So, and of course I can actually set the pricing on there. So based upon the royalties percentage you've chosen, you get maybe 50 cents or maybe £1 on the paperback, maybe 50 cents or so on the Kindle book. Could be maybe even 23. I don't know exactly the figures, but yeah, the system will tell you exactly what that will be like. Hopefully that process makes sense to you. That is the process of actually taking the video that we basically had originally, and then of course turning that into a book. So that's the video, that's the book as it's been published. Hopefully that makes all sense. Any questions, feel free to drop me a line. Look forward to that. Thank you.